Greetings and welcome to Thanatology 13 from Death Education Central. I am your host, Becky Floyd, and this episode of Thanatology 13, we're going to be exploring music and grief and mourning and community. There are few sounds that can stop us in our tracks, quite like the sound of a funeral procession. Even before we understand what we're hearing, we know something important is happening. A lone trumpet, the steady cadence of drums, voices raised together in song. Sound has a remarkable way of demanding our attention. Unlike sight, we can't simply look away. It surrounds us. It asks us to pause, to listen, and perhaps without even realizing it, to bear witness. When I first began studying death rituals, I assumed music was simply part of the atmosphere at funerals. Beautiful, comforting, but secondary. Anthropology taught me something very different. Across cultures, music isn't simply played during mourning. It is one of the ways human beings actually do the work of mourning. So imagine that you are standing on a street corner in New Orleans. In the distance, you hear a brass band approaching. At first, everything feels familiar. The music is slow, measured, almost hymn-like. Family members walk quietly behind the casket. Heads are bowed. The procession openly acknowledges grief. Then something interesting happens. The casket is lowered into the ground. Final prayers are spoken. The family says its last goodbye, and suddenly the music changes. The drums quicken. Trumpets soar. People begin clapping. Umbrellas twirl overhead, and the funeral spills into the streets. To many outsiders, this feels almost contradictory. How can people dance after burying someone they love? Doesn't celebration diminish grief? Actually, it does the exact opposite. The jazz funeral never asks mourners to skip over sorrow. It begins with grief. It's only after the deceased has been laid to rest does the music change. Anthropologists call this a rite of passage. The deceased has crossed one threshold, and now the living begin crossing another. They aren't returning to the same lives they had before. Someone who occupied a unique place in their community is gone. The music doesn't erase that loss, but it helps people carry forward into their new reality. As I continued exploring ethnographies from around the world, I kept encountering the same pattern. Different religions, different languages, different continents, yet remarkably similar soundscapes. People sing, people chant, they ring bells, they beat drums, they cry out loud, they tell stories, they laugh, they make noise together. Eventually, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. The interesting question wasn't necessarily why do people make music at funerals? Instead, it's why do human beings so rarely grieve in silence? One of the things I love most about anthropology is that it constantly challenges our assumptions. When I began comparing funeral traditions around the world, I expected to find endless differences, and I did. But I kept finding the same idea expressed in different ways. Whenever people confront death, they make sound. Among the Barawan people of Borneo, a death is announced by striking a great brass gong. Its sound carries for miles throughout the rainforest, calling relatives and neighboring villages to gather. The funeral house slowly fills with people, and then the noise begins. Drums are beaten, that great brass gong rings. Women rhythmically dance between enormous rice pestles as they pound against the floor. Guests cheer during ceremonial games. Later, gunshot blasts echo through the forest as the body leaves the village. To Western ears, it can sound almost chaotic, but none of it is accidental. Anthropologists have long noticed that percussion appears again and again during rites of passage, births, initiations, marriages, deaths. Rhythm seems to accompany moments when life itself changes direction. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because our very first experience of rhythm is the heartbeat. Long before we understood words, we understood cadence. The Barawan believed that all of this sound accompanies the soul on its journey from the world of the living to the land of the dead. Then, at the end of the funeral, everything stops. The drums fall silent, the gongs cease. The connection between the living and the dead has been ritually released. The music wasn't decorating the ceremony. The music, the noise, the sound was helping accomplish it. In other cultures, sound serves a different purpose. Among the Manyan people of Indonesia, ritual specialists sing lengthy chants that literally give the soul directions. Where to paddle the canoe, where to come ashore, how to find the village of the ancestors. The song becomes a map. The living accompany the dead as far as language can take them. One of the most beautiful discoveries I've encountered comes from rural Greece. Anthropologist Loring Danforth noticed something extraordinary. Traditional funeral laments often shared the same melodies, the same poetic imagery, and sometimes even the same words as wedding songs. And at first, that seems impossible. What could be more different than a wedding and a funeral? One celebrates union, a new life together, and the other mourns loss and separation. And yet, Danforth showed that in rural Greece, they were understood as companion rites of passage. I've even thought about this through a simple metaphor. As the veil is to the bride, so the veil is to the widow. The veil is never simply fabric. It is the symbol of a life being transformed. Perhaps that's why the same songs could accompany both ceremonies. They were never really about weddings or funerals. They were about transformation itself, about leaving one world before entering another, and the community gathering to witness that journey. One of the things I find most fascinating about studying death is that ancient traditions and modern science often arrive at remarkably similar conclusions. Not because one proves the other, but because both are trying to answer the same human question. How do we survive the loss of someone we love? Today, hospice music therapists see every day what traditional cultures have practiced for centuries, millennia even. Music changes us. It slows our breathing, steadies our heartbeat, unlocks memories. creates moments of connection when ordinary conversation has become impossible. Sometimes people who can no longer speak can still sing, or at least hum. Music reaches places language often cannot. Music also gives grief somewhere to go. Some people find comfort in hymns, others in a favorite love song. Some create playlists that help them remember. Others sing loudly in a car, releasing anger, sorry, and even gratitude. Music doesn't tell us what we should feel. It simply gives our feelings a place to live. Anthropologists have long understood that funerals are not only for the dead, they are for the living. Modern psychology would add something equally important. Human beings help regulate one another. When we sing together, breathe together, sit quietly together, we remind each other's nervous systems that we are safe. Perhaps that's one reason communities have always gathered around grief. Now let's return to where we began, the streets of New Orleans. Seen in this broader light, the jazz funeral no longer feels unusual. The brass band replaces the ceremonial gong. The second line replaces the village procession. Jazz replaces ritual chant, but the purpose remains astonishingly familiar. The community gathers, the grief becomes public, the dead are accompanied, and the living accompany one another. I sometimes wonder whether one of the greatest losses in modern life is not just that we fear death, but that we've forgotten how to mourn together. Many of us return to work within days. Families often live far apart. Communities rarely keep vigil. We expect grief to be private. Human history suggests it was never meant to be. Perhaps that's why nearly every culture has found some way to sing, to drum, to chant, to ring bells, or simply to make noise when someone dies. Not because the dead need the music. The music is for those who remain. It reminds us that love still has a community and that no one should cross life's greatest threshold alone. As an anthropologist, I've spent years learning about different cultures and how they face death. Their beliefs vary enormously. Their rituals are beautifully diverse, but one lesson appears again and again. Grief is not something we are meant to carry by ourselves. For thousands of years, people have gathered around fires, around graves, around kitchen tables, around hospital beds, and they have sung. Not because music erases sorrow, but because it reminds us that even in our deepest loss, we still belong to one another. Before music is art, before it is performance, before it is entertainment, it is compassion made audible. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Thanatology 13. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you have, if you'd be so kind as to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, I'd appreciate it. And don't forget to head over to deatheducationcentral.com for more death education resources.